Hey my friend, this is Joe Bakamotsky. I'm the founder of Power to Be Happy and the author of Finding Hope in Times of Uncertainty, a guide to thriving in the challenging world of today. Listen, have you ever said to yourself, I wish things were different. If only I could turn back time. And things didn't have to be this way. And why did it have to be me? Well, listen, we all go through what unfortunately are just tough times, difficult situations, and traumatic events. And there's no turning away from that. But isn't it true that sometimes those things end up holding you back? Holding you back from, from being at your best and making a greater impact, from doing things that you love with ultimately the people that you care about. I think my mindset of how I like to look at it now that I want to share with you, or you might find helpful, is I look at that in the past and say, what can I take away from this so that I could move on with my life? I'm not saying, how can I look at this and be happy about what happened? I don't look at it to say, well, that's how things are. I'm not looking at or brushing it aside. I'm not saying it's unimportant or that I'm going to forget about it. I'm just saying, how can I take something away from this and move on? And the biggest part for me, where it all begins, is learning how to really accept yourself the way you are now and accept the way that you've been in the past. Listen, for me, I went through a very challenging time in my life, years ago, after my first major breakup. I was with a woman she's left me for another man, and I was just devastated. I just went to pieces. I didn't know what to do now. I was depressed. I was drinking. I certainly didn't know how to go out and meet people and do dating and any of those things. I was a mess. And I kept on thinking about all those things that I've done wrong and all those things that I could have done differently, and why didn't I notice problems sooner, and why didn't I have to be this way, or like I've done nothing wrong. And all of those things just came up and they just swept in and it just took over. And it was hard. It was hard for me to deal with it that way because I didn't know what was going on. But over time, I learned how to talk to myself in the way to try to accept it. And by accept it, not meaning that I was happy with it, but meaning to say that I came to terms with it. I was like, this is who I am. This is the person that I have been, and I have done my absolute best. And I kept writing in my diary every single day. I would write, I accept who I am, and I accept the things that I've done. And it made it easier for me to come to terms with it. Like I said, not be happy with it, but saying, what can I take away from this so that I can move on? And finding acceptance is the first crucial step. And a huge part of it is finding the kindness to talk to yourself in a way that doesn't, where you don't beat yourself up, where you stop, blaming yourself for things that you could have done differently or things that maybe didn't go your way, and saying, I am doing my absolute best to be who I am and move forward in the best possible way. I accept the things that I've done, and I accept that some things really didn't work out as I wanted to, but I made the best decisions I could at the time. In my relationship back in the day, I thought about all those things that I did wrong. I saw the person that wasn't there. I saw the person that I wanted to see. I tried to change her. And if you ever try to change someone, that doesn't work well, does it, right? That never works out. I was so scared of being alone. And so a bunch of my decisions were based on that. And I wasn't happy about any of those things. But I've learned to accept that that's how it was. And I made a promise to myself to do things differently. And to, in the next relationship, I said to I'm going to make sure that things are going to be different. And I worked out how. And that helped me to move on. And from then on, I started to think about living a regret-free life. And so, right now, when I look at any of, kind of critical turning points in my life or decisions that I got to make, I look at it from the perspective, will I regret doing this a year from now? Or will I regret not doing this a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And that's a completely different way of looking at things. And that's what I would urge you to do, is to consider your life and the way that you approach important situations, big decisions that you gotta make, or things that you're considering doing in your life, is looking from a perspective to say, am I going to regret doing this? But also, am I going to regret not doing this? Because when you consider this, especially when you give it a timeline, when you say a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you put yourself in the best possible positions to make the best decisions that you can make right now. Right? That way, when you make decisions from that perspective, you'll never be able to turn around and blame yourself. You'll never be able to, just beat yourself up because you did something wrong. No, because you did the best thing you're gonna do at the time. That's the best decision you can make right now. Even if it wasn't the best when you look back on it, it was the best you could make at the time. Because listen, isn't it true that at no time in your life are you going to be perfect, right? None of us are. We're not perfect. That's in our nature. Right? But we want to be able to look at our life and to things that have been holding us back and things that are sometimes preventing us from making choices about the future, is to say, well, what can I take away from this now, from the past, so that I can move on with my life? And the decisions that I make, am I going to regret doing this a year, 5, 10 years from now? Or am I going to regret not doing it 1 year, 5, 10 years from now? Because listen, isn't it true that we'll never be perfect? So why worry about all the things that could go wrong when there is so much to make right? My name is Joe Bakhmutsky. Thank you so much for being here.